We're going to pick up on our where'd my mouse go? There it is. I see it now. We're going to continue with our series on Yah's family. We're gonna cruise through Judges. I think I've got it down to 2, maybe 3 studies. I'm just picking out a couple because the theory we're seeing the same thing over and over again. Yah's working on both sides of the equation. He delivered his people out of Egypt, delivered them through the wilderness, delivered them into the land, and he laid out his commandments, his instructions. They disobeyed him. He's disciplining them. He raised up the ones that he's disciplining them with, and then he raises up the judge to knock the discipliner down when that time is come. So I've decided that this week we're going to hit the highlights and go through the rest of the book. We're not going to make it. We'll probably do Samson next week. Like I said, we've made the point that Yah's in control, and he's on both sides. It's still his plan. It's still his timing right now. We're going to discuss today as an overall view. We're discussing Moab, Israel, Eglon, Ehud, along with Ammon and Amalek, all in Judges 3. We'll look at Gideon through in Judges 6 through 10, and we'll look at Samson next week. Okay. I'm pointing all this out because we want to understand the division between Yah's people and not Yah's people. And that becomes even more important once we get through Judges and we start looking at the kings and how Yah split up the kingdom, and what he said he was going to do. And when Yeshua came, we all know in here, or many of us know in here, that famous line that he said, he was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That narrows things down considerably, He has a plan for his people. He's the one that chooses his people. Okay? We've been over that many times. All right. I'm going to start off by reading Judges 3. Judges 3, we're going to be in verses 12 through 14 to kick it off, okay? So it starts off in verse 12. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of Yah. So the Lord strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel because they had done evil in the sight of Yah. Then he, Eglon, gathered to himself the people of Ammon and Amalek, went and defeated Israel and took possession of the city of palms. So the children of Israel served Eglon, king of Moab, 18 years. Okay? Pick up some highlights from that. We're talking about the children of Israel. They're the ones that did the evil in the sight of Yah. And it was Yah that strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, against his own people. Now, we talked the past couple of weeks, we brought up Romans 9 and those vessels of honor and vessels of dishonor, okay? And Yah makes both of the vessels. He raises them up and uses them when he wants. But in that same passage, it mentioned his long-suffering. Understand, his long-suffering is not just towards those ignoble vessels that he's building. He puts a lot of long-suffering in towards us as well, being patient with us. So his long-suffering is also on both sides of the equation. Okay? I want you to notice a couple of terms when it comes to Israel. And this is review for 99% of you. The children of Israel refers to all of Jacob/Israel's children. Okay? The house of Israel refers to the 10 tribes, or if you remember from the story in Kings, the 10 pieces that Yah tore off and gave to Jeroboam. Yah himself split the kingdom, and Yah himself is going to reunite that kingdom. And that's the ultimate goal at the end of this study here. The house of Israel is also known as the northern kingdom and the kingdom of Israel. All right. Judges 3:12 told us that the children of Israel again did evil. We just covered that, didn't we? 13. Then he gathered to himself. This is what the king of Eglon did, and they defeated Israel. They defeated Israel. That surprises a lot of people. But when he's disciplining us, he's disciplining us. You can actually be doing what Yah says to do and still get hurt. The apostles, it happened to all the apostles. It happened to the prophets. They were doing exactly what they were told to do, but it wasn't easy for them. Some of them ended up killed. And that's why we really need to remember this, where he says, my ways are not your ways, my ways are higher than your ways, okay? But whatever happens in accordance with his plan. So, and they took the city of palms. What's the city of palms? That's right. That's right. That ends up pretty important a little later on in the book, doesn't it? So it wouldn't be good for somebody else to have it. So the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab. They served him for 18 years. And these ones that aren't Yah's people, the world, if you will, the Goyim, we're supposed to be different, noticeably different. And when we get caught up, we're going to touch on it a little bit later. When we forget about Yah just like the people that we're talking about right now. We get comfortable in the situation we're at. We like the comforts. I was thinking through this. This is a sidebar. I was thinking this week, how did we get so far away from knowing what an authority figure was supposed to be? How do we look at Yah, the ultimate authority? You know, as we read through here on these kings, as we get through this story, we're going to find out Eglon's servants knew their place. They knew what they were supposed to do and not supposed to do, and they didn't step over any boundaries. Okay? We don't do that today. I mean, you look around, Letty was just sharing what's happening with the post office boxes down, simple post office boxes. They put new ones up, somebody comes along and tears them down and breaks into them. There's no respect for authority. There's limited respect for authority. But authority is truly authority. One of my boys texted me, he was doing some reading and somebody asked him, what do you think of when you think of God? And that's a good question to ponder. What are you thinking of? You know? And as I'm thinking about this past week, y'all know my mind just wanders, okay? And I'm not trying to sidestep anything or push anything away or shunt any of my own responsibility. But we have been being manipulated for years and years and years. We've been being manipulated through the media, through television shows. How many of you are old enough to remember the TV show Dukes of Hazzard? Okay. Those people did not respect nor obey the law. It's got to have been 10 years ago now that show was on, right? So,
they still show it on MeTV.
Anyway, it was a long time ago. And that was part of the foundation. Even before then, in the 60s and stuff, okay? And it slowly gets worse because we get desensitized to that. We laugh at the Dukes of Hazzard because they don't pay any attention to the cops and they're always outsmarting the cops. You look at the television shows that they've got on today, very seldom do you see a wholesome family. Often in the movies, from even the mouse, who's the Disney, the father is 90% of the time, the father's gone. 85% of the time, the children are disobedient, even if they are a mermaid. And so this all culminates. You become less and less sensitive to that being away from what Yah wants us to do. So it's easy for us to forget Yah, just like it was for them. What we need is the fellowship. What we need is the reminding of our children, as we just read, okay? The reminding of what Yah has told us, passing it down to our children. Because if we don't do that, you're going to forget easily. So, the people should not have been surprised at this. Yet, we're going to find out that they were. They had questions, okay? But Moses told the people that this was going to happen, and I just took one highlight out of Deuteronomy 28. In Deuteronomy 28:25, which is just before Israel went into the land, okay? Moses told them, Yah will cause you, he was talking about the blessings and the curses. He says, if you obey me, there'll be blessings. That was like 7 verses. Okay, 8 verses. And then from verse 8 or 9, all the way to, it's like 67 or 68, something like that. That's all the curses. If you don't obey what I said. And one of those is, Yah will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. And you shall become troublesome to all the kingdoms of the earth. Now, we read that from Deuteronomy and we're applying that to what we're going through in the book of Judges, but isn't that still accurate today? Okay? They're not being defeated by their enemies right now. But it's not because the enemies aren't trying, is it?
We're not being defeated by them. Look how we live. Look at the world around us. They're being defeated daily.
Okay.
And it's all you have to do. Of course, what's this lead up to? People asking for a king, right? And so what are we doing today? They wanted to put their faith in a man. Right. Because he gave an example of all these kings, and that you know how it reads that so many years of bad, and then they get 40 years of rest because they get somebody in their grave. Right. So he gives them a really good example, but man is still doing the same thing they were doing back here. You're right. Like you're saying. You're right. They're ignoring the Creator and putting their faith in a man. You're right. So what are we seeing on TV today? Yeah. Who do we vote for? So to John's point, the defeat isn't an outward defeat. It isn't a... We're fighting a spiritual warfare. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a spiritual thing. Absolutely. All right, back to Judges 3:15. But when the children of Israel cried out to Yah, Yah raised up a deliverer for them. Okay? This is happening with us today too. We get to the point where we cry out. You know, we need to be faster at repentance. We need to be faster at recognizing, but I'm going to scatter if I'm not careful. All right, but when the children of Israel cried out to Yah, they were crying out because of the very discipline that was being applied to them. But it took quite some time for them to cry out. Think about in our own lives, how in tune are we with Yah? Are there things we don't, obviously there's things we don't see yet. Are there things we see and kind of brush off? Oh, well, nobody's looking. Don't hold on to that thought too long. So, Yah raised up a deliverer for them, Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjamite,
a left-handed man, and by him the children of Israel sent tribute to Eglon, the king of Moab. As I was reading through this, I thought, Yah's using this guy that's taking the tribute to the king to get into the king.
I wonder what the significance, why they wanted to make sure we knew he was left-handed was.
I don't know the answer to that. I know there's a purpose to it. There was a reason to it. It may have, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But they sent tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. So as I'm sitting there thinking about this, I'm wondering, did Ehud volunteer for that job, or did he get voluntold? Was he told by the king, or was he low enough on the proverbial totem pole that Israel sent him? Okay? The least threat. I don't know. It's something to just ponder. I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to it, but my point is, Yah allows us to get close to high-ranking officials. We see that all the way through Scripture, don't we? It happened with Joseph. It happened with Daniel, right? All of this, we see that happen. He's going to have his remnant, isn't he? Okay, so on the last tribute trip, Ehud takes out King Eglon. I got to learn to type. And then he goes back and he blows the trumpet and he's calling all the children of Israel together. Now jump down to verse 27 in Judges 3. And it happened when he arrived that he blew the trumpet at the mountains of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mountains, and he led them. Now Yah raises this guy up. I don't think he volunteered for that position either.
Probably not.
Verse 28. Then he said to them, "Follow me, for Yah has delivered your enemy, the Moabites, into your hand." So they went down after him. They seized the fords of the Jordan, leading to Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross over. And at that time they killed about 10,000 men of Moab, all stout men of valor. Not a man escaped. Okay? So here is how that Romans 9 thing is playing out. Israel disobeyed. Israel is the honorable vessel. His chosen people, the honorable vessel. They were disobedient. He used Moab, the dishonorable vessel, to discipline his people. And when that discipline was done, he rose up from within his people and wiped out the ones that were disciplining, okay? The dishonorable vessel. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and they had rest for 80 years. John was just talking about that, okay? They had rest for 80 years after that. Israel crying out to Yah started this whole deliverance. His people crying out to him. Same thing happened where? The same thing happened in Egypt, right? His people were crying out to him, right? Okay. However, when did they finally cry out? Israel was disciplined to the point of repentance. They were disciplined until the point of repentance. You feel like that's coming in this nation? Well, I'm done using that. All right, turn with me to Judges 6, starting in verse 1. Judges 6. And I picked out some interesting just angles on this. We've all read this many, many times before. But watching Yah's plan come into focus and work. In verse 1. Then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yah. So Yah delivered them into the hand of Midian for 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. Because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made for themselves the caves, and the strongholds which are in the mountains. So it was, whenever Israel had sown, Midianites would come up, also Amalekites, and the people of the east would come up against them. Then they would encamp against them and destroy the produce of the earth as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor donkey. For they would come up with their livestock and their tents, coming as numerous as locusts. Both them and their camels were without number, and they would enter the land and destroy it. So Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. Okay? They're getting their clocks clean. This is another thing that came up in Deuteronomy 28. Others are going to eat the produce of your field. He told them in the beginning. He told us in the beginning. Right now we're to the point where we're okay right now with, well, some of us are okay with it. Some of you guys are actually disciplined with this. They're really not even giving us food anymore. And they're trying to take away our agrarian rights to even grow food, because they don't want us having the organic stuff. All the stuff that there is a bunch of junk in the supermarkets these days. All right. So they did again, I'm just pointing out, Yah is the one that delivered them into the hand of the Midianites, okay? He did it. And he allowed the hand of Midian to prevail over Israel. He did it. Okay? Israel got to the point where they were impoverished. You know what that means? That means that land of milk and honey kind of dried up. He provided them with something that they didn't work for, something that they didn't grow, something that they didn't plant. And they didn't obey. And now they're impoverished because of the Midianites. And they cried out to Yah. Picking it up in verse 7, okay? It came to pass when the children of Israel cried out to Yah because of the Midianites, that Yah sent a prophet to the children of Israel, who said to them, "Thus says Yahweh Elohim of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt and brought you out of the house of bondage. And I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out before you and gave you their land. Also I said, I am Yahweh your Elohim. Do not fear the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But you have not obeyed my voice." Verse 11. Now the angel of Yah came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abizrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress in order to hide it from the Midianites. He's threshing wheat while he's hiding, because they're coming down and they're taking it. They're stealing it. What is the wheat? What is the wheat for?
Bread.
Yeah, it's for bread. And bread's only their sustenance, right? Okay? By the way, this is a freebie. If he's threshing wheat, what time of year is it?
Spring.
When is the wheat harvested? How about that? How about that? One
Summer.
word can tell you. Okay? One word can tell you what time of year it is if you're thinking about it. If you keep that in the back of your mind. Okay? Not that that's significant in this story at all, I'm just pointing that out. Because you can get clues like that to help you with the context of a passage that you're in. Okay? All right. So, he's sitting there with Gideon, who's threshing wheat in a wine press. And the angel of Yah appeared to him and said, Yah is with you, mighty man of valor. That phrase doesn't seem to sit in the context we've got so far, right? A man's hiding. He's threshing wheat in a wine press. Probably not the best way to do it. But he calls him a mighty man of valor. Gideon said to him, O my Lord, if Yah is with us, why then has all of this happened to us? And where are all his miracles, which our fathers told us about, saying, did not Yah bring us up out of Egypt? But now Yah has forsaken us and delivered us into the hand of the Midianites. Okay. This reveals something to us. The good things were being passed down to the children, perhaps. All the miracles and warm, fuzzy, buzzy things and all of that. But the warnings were not, it appears. Okay? So we're not passing down, I say that now because I see the same thing today. We're not passing down the whole counsel of what Yah is telling us. There are consequences for what we do. And I'm using we as his people in general. Okay? He tells us how he wants us to live. Gideon obviously knows of Yah. He knows he did miracles. But yet he's asking why. And where he knows that they've been brought out of Egypt. And why has Yah forsaken us? I put that up there a few slides ago. It's from Deuteronomy 28. That's clear. Do you know Yah has not allowed Israel to go through anything that he hasn't already told them they were going to go through? Not a thing that he hasn't already told them that they were going to go through. We're in that group. We got bumpy roads ahead of us. There are going to be people, we already know there are going to be people obedient to Yah that are going to be killed because of their faith. Because of them saying that they believe in God. It's persecution now, you lose a couple of hours. It's going to be real persecution in the future. You're going to lose more than a couple of hours. Okay. Verse 14. Then the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? Now I highlighted the word might there in red, because I want to talk about that for a second. What do you perceive as Gideon's might right now?
His voice.
It's humble, right? He knows he's weak, right?
I think
If
he's
we-
assuring that he has the strength, though. He's putting, here says might. Right? Well, you translate that as strength, too.
Okay.
He says your strength. Maybe he's revealing to him his strength.
Well, we're going to see what he thinks his strength is. I think another thing, if we were, yes, ma'am.
He's brave enough to go sneak around to provide food for his family.
Right.
You know, he's grinding wheat under persecution.
Right.
Talking about inner strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or an inner might.
But I see him as being humble. Okay?
Yeah, he is.
In the New Testament, you might hear it as faith like a child. Okay? Verse 15. And he said to him, "Oh, my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." He recognizes his position. And he's going to recognize as we go out this through the rest of this that he's nothing apart from Yah. He knows he can't do it. If it happens, it's going to be Yah going before him. We're going to see that play out. Verse 16. And Yah said to him, "Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man." Amen. He will be with him. Okay? Now we all know that anybody plus Yah is a majority. We're going to play this out. Verse 17. Then he said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, then show me a sign that it is you who talk with me." Okay? Now, he's being reserved. He's making sure. He's asking questions, and we're going to see that he's fearful. All right? All of those things are 100% totally okay in our walk. We have questions. We have fears. But what we're going to see with Gideon is he never loses obedience. He never loses respect for Yah. He never loses sight of who Yah is. Okay? He's not trying to do it himself. He knows he can't do it himself. All right. And he says, look at here. "Do not depart from here, I pray, until I come to you and bring out my offering and set it before you." And he said, "I will wait until you come back." Then the angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread and lay them on this rock." So he did, and he says, "Pour out the broth." Now it's wet, right? The bread's wet, the meat's wet, the rock's wet, right? Then the angel of the Lord put out the end of the staff that was in his hand, and he touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and fire rose from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. And the angel of God departed out of sight. A lot happening right there. Is that enough sign? He asked for a sign. Does that work?
Exception.
How many of you can touch a stick to a rock and let fire come up? Forget about burning the meat and the bread. Let's do the easy stuff first. Right? Let's make fire come out of a rock. Okay? All right. And then he departed out of sight. I don't know. Did he? I know when we get to Samson, we're going to see that he drifted up with the smoke. Right? I don't know if that's what happened here, but this is a visual sign for Gideon. It's what? You say something?
No, I'm just scratching it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is a visual sign for him. Can I get somebody to read verses 23 through 27?
But Yahweh reassured him, "Shalom to you, don't be afraid, you won't die." Then Gideon built an altar there to Yahweh and called it Yahweh Shalom. To this day it remains in Ophrah of the Avi-Ezri. You said to 27. That very night Yahweh said to him, "Take your father's bull and the other bull, the 7-year-old. Destroy the altar to Baal that belongs to your father. Cut down the sacred pole next to it. And build a proper altar to Yahweh your Elohim on top of this strong point. Then take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering, using the wood of the sacred pole you cut down." Gideon took 10 of his servants and did what Yahweh had told him to do. He didn't do it by day because he was afraid of the men in his father's household and those from the city, so he did it at night.
Okay. So you see what's happening here? He was he was reassured that Yah was right there, and then he was given a command to do. And yes, he was fearful. He wouldn't do it during the day, but he did do it at night. He did what he was told to do. And what was it that he was told to do? It was that stronghold that he took down.
So it gives you a picture of what the people were doing.
Right.
That's why they were in the position they were in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Turn back to idolatry.
Absolutely. I think the biggest nemesis we got right now, no, let me rephrase that. One of the biggest nemesis we got right now, besides ourselves, is that stinking phone. Man, what a trap that thing is. What a trap it is. Now, can I get somebody to read verses 28 through 32? Just continue on from where Amanda read.
When the men of the city got up the next morning, they saw that Baal's altar pulled down, the nearby Asherah pole cut down, and the second bull sacrificed on the newly built altar. They said to one another, "Who did this?" They investigated the matter thoroughly and concluded that Gideon, son of Joash, had done it. The men of the city said to Joash, "Bring out your son so we can execute him." He pulled down the Baal altar and cut down the nearby Asherah pole. But Joash said to all those who confronted him, "Must you fight Baal's battles? Must you rescue him? Whoever takes up his cause will die by morning. If he really is a god, let him fight his own battles. After all, it was his altar that was pulled down." That very day, Gideon's father named him Jerubbaal, because he had said, "Let Baal fight with him. For if it was his altar that was pulled down."
Okay. Where are we? Let's put ourselves in this story for a minute. Where are we located? We're in the land of milk and honey that's been given to the children of Israel. We hear Gideon being spoken to by Yah. He does what Yah says to do. And the people, his brothers and sisters, are ready to kill him because he tore down the altar of the false god that they're not supposed to be worshiping. It gets that bad. It gets that bad. And that's what we're looking at in this particular story right here.
You notice that Gideon is one of their relatives.
Exactly. That's one of the.
Moab was one of their relatives.
That's right. And they're not going to be the only ones that we run into on that. That's a good point. It's just it just continues. All right. After Gideon was obedient to what he was told, the next thing we read is the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east are all gathered together. So here he is. He's being obedient. Okay, yeah, I did what you said. Boom! The army's gathered. Wow. He is doing what Yah said. It's not a past tense. He has done what Yah said up to that point, but there's more that Yah has for him to do. Because remember, when the angel of Yah first met with him, he said he was going to be with him, and he was going to take down the Midianites. Right? All right. Jumping down to verse 33. Then all the Midianites, the Amalekites, and the people of the east gathered together, and they crossed over and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But, look at this. The Spirit of Yah came upon Gideon, and he blew the trumpet, and the Abiezrites gathered behind him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also gathered behind him. And he also sent messengers to Asher and Zebulun and Naphtali. And they came up to meet him. Now I'm going to point something out that we don't see where Yah told him to call all those people. But it does make sense. If there's an army against you, you need an army to have to go against them. And his local folks didn't have too much of a recruiting group pool in his local hometown, right? So he is going around and he's gathering up these people. Next, we find the famous fleece story, right? Where Gideon gets more assurance that Yah's with him. Again, he's taken these steps, but he's wanting to make sure the steps that he's taken are actually what Yah wants him to do. And so everybody's familiar with the fleece story. And after all this assurance that Gideon receives, then Yah tells him that those that are with him are too many. Can I get somebody to read Judges 7, 1 through 3?
Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people with him got up early and set up camp by Ein Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them, but Givat Moreh in the valley. By Givat Moreh in the valley. Yahweh said to Gideon, "There are too many people with you for me to hand Midian over to them, because I don't want Israel to be able to boast against me. We saved ourselves by our own strength. Therefore proclaim to the people, anyone who is anxious or afraid should go back home, while we stay here on Mount Gilad." 22,000 returned, but 10,000 remained.
Okay. So he's telling Gideon, there's too many people. I don't want Israel to think that they did this themselves. That's loosely paraphrased, okay? Folks, we are going into the kingdom not because of us at all. He is holding faithful to what he told Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He says, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hand has saved me. He's going to make sure that that doesn't happen. But at the same time, he's going to show his power, isn't he? And that's what that passage in Romans 9 was talking about. He does that to show his power and his love for his people. All right. So whoever's fearful, let him go ahead and depart. 22,000 dudes left. 10,000 remain. I just talked about that. 10,000 remained right there. All right, I'll read 4 through 8. But Yah said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And if whomever I say to you, this one shall not go with you, that one, the same shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water, and Yah said to Gideon, everyone who laps up water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on one knee and drinks. And the number of them who lapped up, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. And the rest of the people got down on one knee and drank water. And Yah said to Gideon, by the 300 men who lapped, I will save you, and deliver the Midianites into your hand. Let all the other people go, every man to his place. So the people took provisions and their trumpets in their hands, and he sent away all the rest of them, every man to his tent, and retained those 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. All right? We're down to 300 people. The vast majority of them are gone. The way vast majority of them are gone. In verse 4, Yah said he was going to be the one to test the people, test his army, test this army that Gideon was going to have. He's testing them. In verse 7, the 300 men who lapped, by the 300 men who lapped, I will save you. Let the other people go. Notice what Yah does for Gideon and his fear. In verse 10, Yah tells him as this army's gathered across the way, Yah says to him, but if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant. He's afraid. But Gideon is afraid, but he's still obedient. He's still listening to what Yah says to do. You go down there and you shall hear what they say. And after you hear what they say, your hands shall be strengthened to go down against the camp. And then he went down to with Purah his servant to the outpost of the armed men who were in the camp. Now the Midianites and the Amalekites, all of the people of the east, were lying in the valley, as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the seashore in multitude. That's a big group against 300. It's a big group. And when Gideon had come, there was a man telling a dream to his companion. And he said, I've had a dream. To my surprise, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian. How significant is a a loaf of barley bread? Barley was, that was the first crop, right?
Wheat was the better crop.
Wheat was the better crop. But this barley thing, that's insignificant. It's a little, so it looks like something insignificant is coming in, tumbled into the camp of Midian. It came to a tent and struck it so that it fell and overturned, and the tent collapsed. Then his companion answered and said, this is nothing else but the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. Into his hand Elohim has delivered Midian and the whole camp. Question time. Reading comprehension time. How many magnificent things has Gideon done so that he had a reputation that went before him? How about that?
The only thing he did was tear down the temple.
That's it. That's it. Right?
But that was quite a bit when you consider that
it was, yep.
The whole group of people was after him for it. They wanted to kill him.
Right. Someone went before Gideon over into that camp. Anybody want to guess who?
Yeah.
Who brings about dreams? Okay? Do you see what he's doing? As I was going through this again this morning, it's just like how patient he is with us. We're obedient and sometimes we're still scared. And he tells us to do something, and many times we don't want to do it. Moses didn't. You might have called the wrong number, yeah. No, he didn't. He got the right number. And each one of us has that calling that was exactly the right number. And there will come time that we have to do difficult things. And we can rely on him. We can ask him questions. We can ask him to show himself, to show his presence. I often pray that we see the fingerprint of Yah in what we're doing. Just to know He's there is so reassuring. I've prayed and seen it happen with other people that they were having a difficult time. They didn't share things all the way with me, but yet they asked me to pray for them. And I asked Yah to touch them in a way that they knew, in something that nobody else knew that was going on in their life, and show them that you are real. You cut right through that. And that's happened numerous times. Numerous times. People have been touched by Yah in ways that nobody knew this. Nobody knew I was thinking this. Nobody knew this was happening. Somebody did. You didn't have to tell me. And that's what I'm telling you. It's like, okay, so we'll go on. 15. And so it was when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation. What does that say? He worshiped. He worshiped. Hallelujah. That is confirmation. You suppose his hand was actually strengthened after that? Yeah. He's going back to camp like he's already there. He's already there, right? And he returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise. Yah has delivered the camp of Midian into your hand." He can go back with confidence and tell those 300 men, hey, we just have to do what we're told. The delivery's already been taken care of. Then the 300 companies blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers, and they held the torches in their hand. This is in verse 20. With their left hand and the trumpets with their right. And they cried, the sword of... Oh, look at the... Whoop. The dream said it was the sword of Gideon. Look how the camp put it in order. The sword of the Lord and of Gideon.
You gotta say it like VeggieTales. The sword of the Lord and Gideon.
Yes.
Sorry.
I tried to avoid that. I tried to avoid that.
Not with me.
Tried not to get hung up on the flashlights, but here you go.
You
So, they holler all this out. Man, some stuff happens when you gather a bunch of people around, blow a horn, and Yah's moving. Took down a whole city one time. And it took down these numerous people. Now, there was a battle that was after it. And that's another thing that I want to point out. This is a continual journey until we get into the kingdom. Or until we either get into the kingdom or we pass. Until we're no longer in this flesh. The battle's only lifelong. Let me encourage you with that. It's only lifelong. They had stuff that they still have to do. He's going to do everything that we can't do. We have to do what he tells us to do. When the 300 men blew their trumpets, Yah set every man's sword against his companion throughout the whole camp. And the army fled to Beth Achaia towards Zerah, as far as the border of, I should have you read these, Amanda, the border of Abel Maholah by Tabbath. So they boogied, the ones that survived. Have you ever been in a crowd that is huge? Huge crowd? I don't like freeway traffic crowds. And I have been in some back in the day, in the 80s, way back in the 80s. I went to a concert, a rock concert in the LA Coliseum. And it was full. And I was uncomfortable from the time I got there until the time I left because of the number of people. And it was mixed with all kinds of, there was alcohol and drugs and all that stuff. You're just, it's a tinderbox. You're just waiting for it to go, you know. This crowd was bigger than that. And that was my thought while I was there. That was my thought. It's not going to take anything to set this whole thing off. And as innocent as you may be, you're caught. You're in it. So when all this chaos takes off, everybody's for themselves. And they're swinging their swords whichever way they're going to swing it to try to protect them. Verse 22. Then the men of Israel said, jumping into, this is chapter 8, verse 22. I skipped all the way over here to 8 because the men of Israel, after they did the cleanup, the men of Israel came to Gideon and said, rule over us, both you and your sons and your grandson also, for you have delivered us from the hand of Midian. They didn't get it. They didn't get it, did they? Gideon tries to straighten them out in verse 23, but Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, nor shall my son rule over you. Yah shall rule over you. Okay? A remnant is a remnant. They saw the victory and they liked the victory and they thought it was Gideon that did it. And he set them straight. Now, in the spirit of being open, Gideon turns around and blows it in the not too distant future. Okay? And that is our human nature. That's our human nature. We are fighting the flesh until we're not in the flesh anymore. And by the way, pro tip, the flesh isn't going to give up. Where was Gideon when Yah called him?
In the wine press.
He was hiding in a wine press. Gideon was wondering where Yah was in the midst of all this oppression. He knew that he wasn't there, for sure. Okay? Do we have any indication that Gideon asked to be called? Yeah, I want you to pay attention to that. Moses didn't ask to be called either, did he? You didn't ask to be called either. Neither did I. None of us that are called asked to be called. However, we've been called with a purpose in mind beforehand. And the purpose wasn't in the email. We have to advance forward to see what the purpose is. How did Gideon see his tribe and himself?
Strong.
That's right. He had the humility. And victory sometimes leads to sloppiness. Victory can lead to laziness. It can lead to a lack of discipline. It can lead to failure, is what it can lead to. It does. Repeats itself. Rinse, wash, repeat in Judges several times. What do you think the keys were to Gideon's success? I've said a couple of things already. What are some of the keys to his success?
Yah walked in front of him.
What's that?
Yah walked in front of him.
Yep, that is the key. That is the main key, right? But right along behind that key was Gideon stepping in step, right? Right where Yah was leading him. Stepping right where he was leading him. Yes, ma'am.
I really like the story because it strengthens my faith, and seeing Gideon, I believe, it strengthened his faith in believing once the angel of the Lord appeared to him, strengthened him to say, I believe if God is with me, who can be against me?
Right.
Because now he's not going to fight those battles alone, but the Almighty is with him.
Right.
And he's got the victory.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
As we walk along in our walks today, there are times we need reassurance. And you know, some of the times we need the most reassurance is when we think we got a handle on something. It's when we try to help Yah, or when we think we got it. You know, I don't need this. You know, I don't need to rely on Yah as much now because I've got these provisions that He's given me. Please reconsider that, because He's watching that too. All right, let's see. He was expecting, and he was actually anticipating. He knew that he needed that. That Israel needed Yah to step in. He knew that. He was communicating there was communication to and from Yah. That's vital. Yeshua said, abide in me and I will abide in you. We have to be in that relationship. Obedience in spite of fear. Okay? Now, having said all that, I was rebuked several times through this study, because I do get carried away. I'm thankful for all He's done for me, but I'm not doing anything by myself except drifting off in the wrong direction, you know. And if I don't, I'm just going to use me because I know you guys got it together. But if I'm not in communication with Him, if I'm not understanding that He's right there watching, I'm going to drift. Being a man, I like to fix things. There's been many a time in my life that Yah has started something and I'm like, ha! I know where you're going with this. And then I'm about 7 blocks out in front and He stopped back there. And He's waiting for me to run into that wall, recognize what I did, turn around, and go back. And when I get back there, guess what? He's more than happy to pick up right where we were and move on. Right? Okay. Next week, I want you to read the account of Samson in Judges 13 through 16. And we'll also read through the book of Ruth. We're going to try to cover both of those next week. And basically what we're trying to see here is the variation. Yah does not do the same thing every time. Yeshua didn't heal the blind man the same way any of the times. He delivers these people by delivering giving them a judge and raising them up. The judge never volunteers for you don't see any of the judges volunteer. He picks them. You know? And he always ends up picking the right one, man, because the judges, they do what they're supposed to do. And I encourage you, read the whole book of Judges in light of this, you know, looking at him being on both sides of the equation. He's in control of everything. He does what he needs to do to accomplish his purpose. And I'm hoping to get done with this next week so that we can get into Samuel, because I'm anxious to get into the kingdom and see the kingdom split. This is important, especially for the days we're in right now. People are going to be coming to us trying to get answers, and they need to understand it's Him uniting one kingdom. He's going to do it in His time. And there are bumpy roads ahead. It's not all pizzas and beers from here on out. Okay? It's going to be difficult for His believers. The whole story tells us that. Even in obedience, His people are killed. And at the same time, His people are delivered. How many times did they put the Apostle John in boiling oil? And it didn't kill him.
It was like stepping into a warm bath. Yeah.
He chooses it. He chooses it. All right, so with that, does anybody have any questions or comments, concerns? Straighten me out in my errors, ways of errors, or?
I have a question.
Okay.
What
That-
did you mean by losing a couple hours?
What did I mean by losing a couple of hours? I have to confess, I wasn't listening, so I don't know the context.
We won't be losing hours, we'll be losing our heads.
What's that?
We won't be losing an hour or 2 or 3 or a day, we'll be losing our heads.
Oh, is that what I was saying?
Oh, cause Amanda lost hours and.
Oh, yeah. Amanda lost hours because of her belief, because of her faith, because of speaking it. And I was just pointing that out as a contrast. That is a form of persecution. However, it's kind of a minor persecution compared to getting your head cut off because of your faith. That's what I meant by that. Great question. Thank you very much. Well, I need somebody to keep me straight.
I hear it all the time.
Anybody else? Okay, I love you guys. Now it's time to
For ours to receive blessing.